Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Pre-IPO Stocks. With me is Clint Sorenson, Chief Investment Officer of WellShield, an outsourced CIO and investment research company. And we got two very special guests for you, a double dip here, right? We got Luke Oliver, Head of Strategy and Climate at CraneShares ETFs, and Jack Dreifuss, General Partner of Inpatient Capital. The fellows would just tell me about their investment strategies, really interesting stuff. So certainly check out Inpatient Capital and CraneShares ETFs or Climate Suite when you get a chance. So, all right, we got three topics queued up for us today. We're going to talk about Databricks revenue, SpaceX's new hire, and then lastly, Epic Games' new Metahuman Animator. All right, so we'll hit Databricks and SpaceX kind of quick here. The last one I really want to focus on the most. But so Databricks is a data analytics company. Its revenue just surpassed $1 billion. Revenue's up 60% year over year. These guys are growing really fast, right? So, Clint, first question to you, buddy. I know you talk a lot about Databricks got a big business in AI, right? And I know you talk a lot about investing into infrastructure in companies, right, that support kind of these themes. I think you have like a picks and shovels kind of phrase, if I'm not mistaken. But like, talk to us about that. Like, Databricks is, I think, one of these companies that kind of fits in that. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is going to be the tail of AI, right? So as AI, the whole notion, everything is going to be an AI company, right? And I know Jack can speak to this too. Everything, just like it was a technology company after the internet revolution, everything became an internet company. Everything's going to be an AI company. Use AI. I mean, how many conference calls, earnings conference calls are you hearing AI on now? It's pretty nuts. But I think the ultimate play here, in my opinion, is in the picks and shovels, right? And that's borrowing from the whole notion of the gold rush. The people who made the most money in the gold rush were the people selling the picks and shovels, not the ones mining the gold. And I think that's going to be the story here. And I really do think it's in data. It's in data analytics. It's in data availability. It's in computing power or compute. I think those are the things that are going to be what sets the stage for the moneymakers. And I think this is just another example of that. I think NVIDIA was a good example of that too, right? So I think this is going to change everything. AI is amazing. It's one of those innovation leaps that we've seen. And I can't wait to see how many different businesses it disrupts and how far it takes humanity. But I can definitely say that I want to play it through the data side. And so I think Databricks is, seeing that their revenue's jumping like this, seeing how much success they're having in this space, I think that's just a testament to that theme.
I got you. So, okay. So Jack, so you're in, seed or kind of early stage, a venture capital fund, right? Are you seeing AI kind of reverberating through, any of the investments that you're making or companies that you're talking to, or like, and also too, I know that you do a lot of kind of onshoring manufacturing. Maybe there's some AI related businesses there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So in terms of the history of AI, that I think is sort of seminal to why it's partly so relevant today is that, kind of the distinguishing point is AI and machine learnings. And, I think that oftentimes will get convoluted. I won't turn this into too much of a sort of, seminar, but, I think what happened basically was in 2017, the Transformer was released, and the Transformer was basically it's now an acquired company by Google called DeepMind. That's now, I think, called Google Brain or something like that, where it was an open source machine learning library that was able to basically make these predictive interpretations of data. So whereas before, AI and machine learning was really simple, it was like, identifying categories of things. That's a chair, that's a person. And then the next time it saw a chair and a person, it was like, oh, that's a chair, that's a person, that's machine learning, right? Now it's actually able to say, oh, that's a chair that looks different than the other chair. So it's like sort of able to have an interpretation layer where it's able to predict based on the inputs you feed it. And that's where that's where like ChatGPT came out and blew everyone's mind, where it wasn't just taking data and presenting it to you, it was actually making interpretations of the data using probabilities. And so that's been the kind of step function change that like allows for things like personalization and other things where you can make predictions at just a far more meaningful level that you were able to before. So yeah, similar to kind of Clinton, this is where we ended up seeing a lot of eye to eye and where we kind of invest in stuff together is everybody's kind of rushing to use AI at some level. And so the question is, how can you enable, rather than picking who's going to use AI in the best ways, right, at the sort of application layer, I just want to be at the side of facilitating the enablement side of it. So whether it's giving them secure access to the data to be able to do their kind of AI or using it in a way where there's a little bit more of like, I'm not trying to pick winners. I'd rather be Shopify than bet on whoever's going to be the next, Warby Parker, if that makes sense. I'd rather be the infrastructure that enables the next Warby Parker, and then just take part of letting the winners figure themselves out in the market.
That's very interesting. All right. So Luke, then you're obviously in the climate space, expert in that space, right? Are you starting to see AI kind of reverb through the climate channel at all? And if it is, like, how's it kind of getting in the mix there?
Yeah. I mean, I think Clint said it, that, everyone's now attaching, people used to be a crypto company, and then we're not a crypto company, we're a company, but we use blockchain technology, and it starts in the front of the deck and then it shifts to the back of it. So there's probably we're probably in that kind of mania where everyone's talking AI and assuming it can solve all the world's problems. And it won't, and in some cases it'll be a productivity tool, and I mean that's certainly how I use it, just to get started on writing a paper, and then I can edit it and make it my own. But it's that hard, it takes some of those hard steps out of simple processes. But in the climate space, and it's funny, Jack mentioned this before we hit the record button, was talking about MRV, and which is measuring and verifying carbon offsets in the market. And I think between in a carbon offset market where there's no standardization yet, or there's a huge amount of challenge in standardizing and recognizing sort of trends and measurements across different types of carbon offsets, I think an AI solution that sort of helps people understand them in some sort of consistency will be quite powerful. So I think that's where we're starting to see it. But also just all it is just it's just speed of diagnosing and absorbing that information and bringing it to conclusion. So I think it just accelerates everything. And I think we'll see it, we talk a lot about the fact that it's not optional, it's not a maybe that we decarbonize the global economy. It's happening, it's underway. And there's a huge amount of capital behind it. And I think those that are able to really, efficiently use the data available to them, they're going to be the winners in that. So I think it's important. Yeah.
So an accelerant, right? Which seems like that's general consensus, I think, with most investors I speak to, is that AI is just going to help make things much more productive and kind of drive GDP growth, right? Which is interesting. So, okay, let's switch topics here. So just want to hit on this one real quick. So SpaceX hired a 14-year-old kid this week, okay? For this guy, this young fellow, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but his name's Kairan Quazi, right? I think I pronounced that right. He graduated from Santa Cruz at 14 years old, and SpaceX hired him. So I know I have kids. I don't know, Jack, if you have kids, but I know Luke and Clint do, right? I mean, first of all, why any takers on why they did this? I just want to hit on this one quick and then get to Epic Games. But any reasons on why? Is it publicity stunt? Is the kid really good? Like, would you hire a 14-year-old kid to work at your business?
Right? I think this one, lots of things jump out. One, of course, it's an easy PR hit. You're a disruptor. You're doing something disruptive. But it also jumps out. Now, this kid has gone to college. He's not a regular 14-year-old. He's a particularly impressive academically 14-year-old. Who knows what he's like? We've all met people that are really smart, book smart, and not necessarily useful in the workplace. But let's assume this kid is amazing in all sense. I think tons of things jump out in that. Do you need 21 years of education to be useful?
Very interesting.
College costing $500,000. That trade is a terrible. I don't know if this is a podcast because I almost did, but it's a crappy. That's a terrible trade.
Right.
And I save a decent chunk into my kids' 529s, and I was talking to someone about it, and they're like, "Oh, you put that's quite a lot. That'll probably get them a year of college."
A year, right?
I hope it would pay the whole thing.
Yes.
If I'm making sacrifices to fund the thing, and so. I think we're going to see more of it. This is a particularly special kid and situation, but I think we're going to see if people who can get things done.
Yes.
And you can learn that from a much younger age than this sort of 22 when you're supposed to leave college.
Well said.
So I think we're going to see tons of this and more non-traditional hiring.
So Jack, you mentioned Peter Thiel before we hit the record button here a few times, but he's got like a program, right, for kids to like not go to college and just kind of go right into the workplace. Is that right?
Yeah, no, and I'm friends with actually Jim O'Neill, who co-founded that. Actually, the CEO of that company, Nanotronics, we were talking about, was a mentor to Vitalik Buterin, of all people, in the Thiel Fellowship. Yeah, that basically pays you not to go to college. There's another fund called, I think it's like 1517 Ventures, that strictly invests in people that didn't graduate from college.
Oh,
Like
that's
their main criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even believe I went to college. I can't believe any college let me in, frankly. I mean, I cheated my way through every single class, every single homework assignment. I mean, I just milked it until the end, and I was like, I don't know why you guys are continuing to support and enable me to just be an absolute degenerate. But my trade is I'm long trade schools and short universities. I mean, I think I could see a real estate opportunity to buying a bunch of defunct, tier 2 and tier 3 schools, because it just doesn't make sense. We have so many accredited universities, and it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'd rather buy that great real estate and turn them into trade schools that specialize in everything from hair salons to coding boot camps to design to robotics to fill in the blank sort of specialized skill. And so I think you could create a real estate fund that just goes and buys a bunch of distressed tier 3 colleges and turns them into trade schools, because I think that's the better bet. If we want to have a functional economy, I don't think we need to be investing in generalized sort of like educational programs, but rather specific skill sets that fill the unemployment gaps that we still have in this country.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. But Clint, I know you and I have had conversations on this topic, right? So what do you think? What do you think about what these two fellows just said?
Well, I agree. I've got a theory. I think kids start out with infinite intelligence and the ability to observe and grasp things that we can't even fathom, and we just add human complexity and layers of BS over the years. And I think that I love the fact this is just another case in point of Elon Musk throwing the proverbial middle finger to the establishment and saying, I'm not going to follow your rules. I don't care about these institutions and these traditions. I'm going to challenge them all. You said I wasn't an expert in payments. You said I wasn't an expert in rockets. You said I'm not an expert in tunnels. You said I'm not an expert in, brain chips or what? Who knows what's next? I think this is just another
social media.
Yeah, social media, media in general. I just think this is awesome. I love it. I think college is a gigantic waste. I think we've created a bunch of massive hedge funds, and those traditions are what keep them in the game. I mean, look at what they've done to sports. I'm not even going to get on a soapbox, but I love this. I just think I think it's time, right? I'm a big believer in decentralization. I think this is another case in point of that. And I think ultimately, to Jack's point, and I know Luke shares the same thought based on his comments earlier, I think you're going to see more of these decentralized educational institutions that are more focused on actually doing things that are meaningful for the real economy. And I think that's great for America and great for people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd also say this, fellas, like I'm seeing a lot more companies like not have it be a requirement that you graduate from a university, right, to be able to work there. Like and I know when I was coming up in like my 20s, most places you had to have a piece of paper, you had to have a college degree to even, get in the door and be considered. But that seems like we're kind of moving away from that. Certainly in certain disciplines like software development, right? Developers seem like they can get away with anything these days, right? But that's really interesting. Okay, so last topic, fellas. I am like obsessed, more and more obsessed with like photorealistic avatars, the metaverse, all of this stuff, right? So Epic Games this week announced this new thing called Metahuman Animator, which I know, Clint, Epic Games is a company true and dear to your heart. It's there in North Carolina, right? So this new technology allows someone to use their iPhone, take a picture, scan their face, and it literally puts their own face into the metaverse, right? So we kind of saw some of this with Apple Vision Pro, where that same thing was happening when that got announced last week. Like this stuff's all coming pretty fast, right? So Luke, I got a question for you, man. Like you work for, CraneShare is a big company, right? And you do a lot of traveling too, if I remember correctly, right? Like you're on the road seeing a lot of people. Do you see a time, whether it's 5 years, 10 years out, after some of this stuff starts getting adopted, where you're doing business meetings using these kind of photorealistic avatars, in the metaverse?
That's funny. That didn't cross my mind as a use case. I mean, because in theory, we're doing that now. And what you're saying is I could just be having two different conversations.
Right.
If I've downloaded there's an AI that thinks just like me, and then now there's a face that looks just like me. I wasn't even
thinking about that, but that's interesting
because
too.
Yep. If it's still got to be me, then I may as well just do it on video.
Sure.
But if there's a way where I can actually simultaneously have two different conversations on two different topics and use my face, but that's more than just the photorealistic face.
Right.
That's the easy part.
But let me ask you got children and everything, right? Like for you to get on a plane, like now if you got to go, right? But I have to imagine if you feel like you can have a almost real life conversation with somebody.
Yeah,
right?
But is that the relationship you want with your kids? That hey,
no, not with your kids, but with some business colleague or prospect or whatever, right? Like at some threshold, you're like, I'm going to take that one in the metaverse versus like getting on a plane and like being away from my family.
Yeah, well, I tell you what came to my mind on this was, and I don't know if you might know this about me, Aaron, but and also Clint, to your point, we're born with infinite imagination and smarts, and then civilization beats it out of us. As a kid, I only ever wanted to be a movie director, and but that just wasn't a real job that a regular kid from Northwest London can do. So that was never a choice. So I went down a traditional career path. But I recently, or a couple of years during the pandemic, I started making some films with my kids and having some adventures. Cool. Great fun. When I think about this, I think of could you, if you can create photorealistic actors now, and you can help and so what I'm saying is someone like me that always had these kind of it's relegated to being a hobby at best.
Yeah.
But now maybe you've got the power to direct actors and have scripts written, and you can use and basically the ability to do professional grade work from your laptop in the same way that we can edit our photos now at a level no one could do 10 years ago.
There's even AIs out there now where you could put one of your avatars, right, Luke Oliver, into the metaverse and upload it and have the AI. You can tell an AI what to do and it creates video content, right? Using your avatar, which I think is pretty powerful. But so hey Jack, so what are your thoughts? I'm interested kind of being in that seed and kind of Series A space. Like, what are your thoughts around this Apple Vision Pro technology, right? Do you think, and these like realistic avatars, do you think that there's going to be companies building, are there going to be a whole series of apps? Like when the iPhone came out, now there's tons of apps, iPhone apps, right? Are we going to see apps for the Apple Vision Pro?
It's funny. I have too much to say on this, and I think we have time for it. But I guess I'll try and give a couple of clips. So I have a close friend that we're starting. I'm pretty prolific sort of brand marketing founder, and we're starting a creative agency because we just realized there's an opportunity to really, I think, build a creative agency of the now. We haven't seen we haven't been happy with the creative agencies we've seen in terms of capturing the zeitgeist of what matters right now. I think so much has happened in the last few years that I speak to most agencies and I just don't see the same level of kind of quality that I think should exist. And so he pitched me the idea of we should build a studio entirely built around the Apple what's it called again?
Vision Pro.
Vision Pro. I don't know. I just said to him, I'm bearish on virtual reality. I just think that I was actually thinking about why in between the question to me, and I realized it's just this generation and still the existing generations did not grow up with a virtual reality experience. So it's just not in our DNA. Like I put one of those damn headsets on and I feel like I have vertigo. I want to, I need to like lay down for a few hours. And I'd prefer to touch grass if I could help it. And so I think that and then I thought about this. I was like, well, maybe if we actually created a 3D education experience where you could personalize, I could be sitting in the classroom inside of, the beaches in Normandy during World War II and kind of have an early on sort of childhood education experience that's 3D, maybe then that's the on-ramp to virtual reality really taking off. But from a sort of today's standpoint, because we didn't grow up with it, I just have no interest in it. I see this stuff get launched and I'm like, I'm barely dealing with the two-dimensional world and hanging on for my dear life. So I think the three-dimensional world just sounds like an entirely new nightmare that I'm not willing to open up the can of worms for. So I think it would require there being a an adoption maybe in early childhood or early growth stages of a child in order to really on ramp into this stuff.
I
That
can
being
appreciate
said,
that.
I think that the 3D capture and the Metahuman Animator, I mean, it's cool as hell. I think from an entertainment standpoint, I could see it having its thing, but not much more than sort of short-term entertainment. And otherwise, I think we have to turn over a whole generation before virtual reality kicks off. So I'm not investing much in the space. I have a small investment in an augmented reality distributed workforce platform called Morpheus that basically helps distributed teams kind of collaborate in a virtual reality kind of space to do one-on-ones and meetings and networking. And I like that bet because I think it's a very specific utility use case. But I think otherwise I'm staying out of the space overall.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is very smart. I think it's very much use case driven because you're not wrong. Like I'm 42 years old, and for me to put one of those things on like all day long is a non-starter. But if I had a real reason to do it, like it was going to save me money, it was going to save me time, or it was going to make me money, I would put one of those things on in a heartbeat, right? Right. But I'm not going to just do it for kicks because I think it's more fun to have a headset on than to use my smartphone, right?
Yeah, these are video games to us. This is like you said. If someone said, "Hey, you can be immersive, storm the beaches of Normandy,"
right,
with 10 lives,
yeah,
awesome, count me in. But I don't want to work in there and live in there. Yeah. And
I mean, that's my thing, Luke. That's why I brought it up for you, Luke. Like, because my thing, to Jack, to your point, like my catalyst, my driver to want to use that is if I didn't have to leave my family and kids, right? Like if I could stay and see them and still get accomplished what I needed to get accomplished. Because I could have.
Yeah, one other thing I would just add is I'm not trying to proselytize anybody here with virtue signaling, but the number one use case for virtual reality is porn, and I'm anti-porn. So that's if you want to make money, that's the space you got to make it in. But I'm not interested in making money in porn. But like realistically, that's what virtual reality is: single, drop dead, like you have porn, and then you have every other use case about 10 steps below it, in my opinion. But like I said, the coolest version that I could see taking off, if you think about AI in conjunction with kind of the metaverse and sort of digitization, sort of like real-time animation, is personalized early education. If I could have an immersive, interactive classroom that combines personalized experiences and virtual reality, I could see that being a cool use case. I think that'll take time. You have to reconfigure schools. But I think for me, I suffered the trauma of being inside that same sort of white box schooling system, and that's why I had to cheat my whole way through. And I think virtual reality and AI could actually be a really great way to kind of create personalized experiences in childhood education. But then later on, kids go to trade schools when they early on in their life realize what's the most engaging to them, and then we can kind of do away with large, overpriced universities and move to trade schools.
Right.
I'd love, Jack, to get your 2 cents, because when you were talking about the trade, so I'm very similar beliefs and thoughts on the trade school versus people doing, but it is important. The arts are important, culture is important, history, geography. These are all like very important things. I almost wonder if you do that same deal where you buy the real estate, but you don't have, and I don't want to offend anyone, you're a Long Island guy, Aaron, but like, I don't know, you drop lacrosse. You don't have a lacrosse program where you're paying for this stadium and these locker rooms and it's just about the education and you do need some liberal art type content as well. In other words, do you go in and run it at somewhere closer to cost and disrupt them and basically be much cheaper, but you buy an existing accredited facility and institution?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's just no optionality right now. I think it's just sort of binary kind of outcomes here. It's like you are, you ain't. And I think that if you could preserve some sort of option to go to the liberal arts experiences, I think that I'm not saying go, I think that like there should probably be like maybe like 100 solid liberal arts colleges. But like, I mean, let's see how many liberal arts colleges in the U.S. Let's see. Oh, wow. There's actually, okay. That's surprising. There's only 200. No way. I mean, I guess there's all the different state universities. So liberal arts are like very specific. You have liberal arts in all the universities, but let's just see how many accredited universities in the U.S. 4,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
do we
lot.
need 4,000 colleges that are, costing a minimum of 10 plus K, a semester or whatever it is? It's just no way. Like, if I had the chance to go to Harvard or MIT, yeah, I'd probably go there. But no offense to any listener, should I be going to Tulane University and spend the same goddamn amount of money
Yeah.
for the B team from a private university standpoint? Probably not. So. I think that maybe there should be one Tulane so that you can go to a B team kind of private university, but there probably is 500 other Tulane equivalents that just don't make sense to me, that we should have options to go to the Tulane that's very specific to a specific field. So.
No, there's certainly a lot of fluff, I think, at a four-year institution. That's
Right.
for sure. But Clint, to bring it back to Epic Games here, just to finish this topic and finish it off, right? So look, I mean, we got Epic Games, you got Apple Vision Pro. There's probably an AI component into this kind of metaverse thing, right? I mean, do you think this, technology with the Metahuman Animator and other things that at Epic Games is doing with Unreal Engine and some of their other products, is this going to help that acceleration and adoption that kind of Jack was talking about, or do you think it's not related to that at all? They're just kind of going to add some kind of a smaller incremental value.
No, look, it comes down to realistic gaming, right? And so gaming is this probably the second biggest use case of VR, right? Think about it,
right?
To Jack's earlier point, but no, I think gaming is why you have gaming companies like Epic building this. I think concerts, anything entertainment, this is all a big fit for, and I think you're going to get quick adoption. I do think that people are going to adapt to that fast. And then I do think education. We talked about this last week. I think you'll see the Apple Vision Pro in every medical school, right? Every dental school. Instead of working with cadavers, you're working with a photorealistic human body, and you're performing surgery or mastering your craft. I do see that. That is an easy use case. Engineering, building stuff. I think you're going to see in the STEM category, I think this is going to be a very quick adoption rate in educational facilities. I don't know at where, most likely universities, because they're pretty expensive. And we know how much they charge to our earlier comments. So they have the money. These giant hedge funds have the money to, also called universities, have the money to spend on these Apple Vision Pros. But no, I'm a bull on this space for that main reason. I don't think you've got to disrupt every industry. I don't know how fast it disrupts business travel. I love it for me personally, as a CIO, where I can say, hey, with AI, here's all of my data set, give them access to everything that we write about, right? I obviously like decentralization, deglobalization. Here are kind of our themes. Here's the investment framework. Here's how we calculate it. Here's all the inputs. And then have a photorealistic avatar, delivering messages to advisors or whatever, right, that I don't have to actually do to give scale. I think in areas like law, consulting, right, OCIO, which is consulting, anything like that, I think it could be applicable. I don't know, but that's going to be driven by the demand of the client. But I do see applications there, right, that would free up time and give scale. But again, quick usage, I don't know. I mean, baby boomers have all the money. They're not. Yep. I don't see a lot of them putting on the Apple Vision Pro and jumping into the metaverse. And so, in financial services and things like that, I think it's going to be a bit delayed. But yeah, I'm optimistic on the space in general, and I think Epic Games, like we talked about, I think they have the most mature metaverse, and I think they're using it correctly in the form of gaming. And I think when you think about, hey, Jack, we should talk about poker, right? Think about gaming, even adult gaming, right? So like poker, those type of things, right? You don't have to go to Vegas or go anywhere else and compete in tournaments. You have a different online poker experience. I think where there's financial incentives, I could see a use case there too.
Right.
Jack's a former professional poker player. That's why I mentioned Jack.
All right. That's good. That's good. So more tournaments for Jack, right?
That's right.
With this stuff.
No. We can't have that, because then all of a sudden he becomes less effective in VC. So that's not good.
I got you. All right. So no Apple Vision Pro for Jack then.
No. Not if he's using it for poker. We gotta keep him in line.
I love it. All right. Well, this is good, fellas. So listen, thanks for your time. I know it's Juneteenth. It's like a holiday today, so I appreciate you guys making time to do this. But,
I got one more. I got one more hot quote. So I thought I was like saving this for a podcast, which shouldn't I go on? So we'll see how hot it is. But I think AI is the tractor for the internet. Said another way, actually, I'd say AI is the tractor for digital information. Because if you think about what like tractors did for farming, it completely streamlined what a human could singly not do in a single day. Right. It could do in terms of mowing the lawn, so to speak.
Right.
Effectively, now everybody thought that the tractor was going to just upend and replace everybody, and nobody was going to have a job anymore. So I think we think the same thing again. So I think if you think about it as a tractor for digital information, you in line kind of create new opportunities to scale and create whatever the next grocery store of the internet looks like as a result of the efficiencies gained. So there's my hot quote.
No, it's an amazing time to be an investor, right? Because this thing could spur just massive GDP growth, right? AI, all these different technologies that we're talking to. So I keep telling my wife it's like such an interesting time to be raising young children, because I think back when I was a kid talking to a phone that was connected to a wall, right? And now look at where kind of my life or what my life looks like, and I can only imagine what they're going to look like in 20 or 30 years, right? It's going to be kind of a very different world, but I think better. I'm optimistic, right?
I agree.
Yeah,
for sure.
We all are in that.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, fellas. Well, listen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right,
Thanks,
you guys
guys.
all have a good day. Okay.
See you guys.
All right.
See you. Bye.